Hello and welcome to Dr. Jam's Jam, where we get down and dirty with energy, carbon, forest, agriculture, and waste. Today we'll be talking about forest, biomass, carbon accounting. Wake up! No, seriously, wake up! This is important. But why? Well, it's important because bioenergy is by far the largest source of renewable energy in the world. And so a wrong approach means we won't meet climate goals and will harm the health and productivity of forests. Biomass is about 50% carbon. When we burn biomass, carbon dioxide is produced and released from the stack. These are called biogenic emissions. Biogenic because they're part of the biomass carbon cycle. This is different than carbon dioxide emissions from fossil fuel combustion because that carbon has been locked underground for millions of years. CO2 emissions from biomass combustion are not included in the annual greenhouse gas inventory for energy facilities. People sometimes say this is because biomass is carbon neutral. No. The fact that the CO2 emissions from biomass combustion are biogenic, or that forests or agricultural lands can be replanted, has nothing to do with counting emissions on an annual basis. We do not include carbon dioxide emissions from biomass combustion in energy inventories because they are already counted when we harvest the trees. They are counted in the forest, not at the stack. This can be seen in national greenhouse gas inventories. Instead of being reported in the energy category, biogenic emissions from energy production are reported in the land use change, and forestry, or LULUCF category. Lou? Counting them in both the energy and LULUCF, let's just call it forest category, would be double counting. We wouldn't want that to happen. It would be like counting an expense in your businesses twice. The books would be off and your accountant would not be pleased. So why not count at the stack instead of the forest? We must account for all carbon changes in the forest in any given year. This includes harvest, but it also includes other forest carbon losses like insects, wildfires, and the big one, natural death or mortality. Just as importantly, we also have to account for all the growth of the forest in that year, which increases the carbon stored in trees. If growth of the forest is more than the losses, the amount of carbon stored in the forest increases in that year. If the losses are more than the growth, there is a net decrease in the stored carbon. We can use satellites to measure how much carbon is stored in the forest, but we can't accurately track what happens to every piece of wood and know when the carbon is released back to the atmosphere. If wood is harvested but combusted, such as in a campfire, there would be no recording of the loss of carbon or emissions. No one wants to spend their time at a campfire counting carbon. That's not fun. While we do measure the carbon dioxide emissions from biomass energy facilities, they are not included in annual greenhouse gas inventories, just as they would not be if the same biomass was used for your campfire. Because We already counted it when the tree was harvested. So this is why we count forest carbon emissions in the forest and not at the energy plant. This is the approach used by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and national governments. If we trust the IPCC for the very existence of climate change, it probably makes sense to trust them for their carbon accounting. So, next time somebody says there is a biomass carbon accounting error, tell them this just isn't true. They just need to check the forest. Now, like many things in life, bioenergy can be done really well or really poorly. Check out our video on how you can ensure there are no carbon losses or even realized carbon gains in the carbon stored in the forest while using sustainable biomass to reduce fossil fuel consumption. You might also be interested in our video on forest carbon accounting emissions can be negative using BECCS, bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. Keep on jamming.